Okay, we will now call this meeting to order. Ms. Morgan, will you please call roll? Here.
Vice Chair Price. Here. Ms. Cheeves.
Here.
Here.
Ms. Davis.
Ms. Kirkpatrick?
Here.
There you go.
Here and me.
Got it. Okay, we do have a quorum today, and we thank you all for coming. Commissioners, there are no minutes to approve from our last meeting, and so we're going to go ahead and start in on the agenda for today. First of all, like I said, welcome to the Historic Preservation Commission meeting today. If you first would go ahead and pull out your cell phones, and commissioners as well, we've had that problem up here, and turn your cell phones to vibrate. That would be great. We're going to cover the items today in the order that are on the agenda, and so we will call you up, and if you would please come to Ms. Morgan, sign in, and then just have a seat on the first pew there. Our first request today is a certificate of appropriateness for addition and alterations at 113 North Washington Street, Rob and Barbara Gaston, petitioners. So if y'all will come on up and sign in with Ms. Morgan. And I have already been corrected. Gaston. I'm so sorry.
It's Texan, not French.
So sorry. Okay, if you'd like to go ahead and just kind of go over what you would like us to know about your request today, and then we'll let Mr. Duke have the opportunity to kind of update us from that point of view, and then we'll discuss it. Okay?
In the front yard, or facing the street, we need to replace the sidewalk that goes from the city sidewalk up to our front porch. Currently, it's octagonal stepping stones. A lot of them are broken. You cannot get them anymore. There's gaps in it. We had a car drive across our front yard a couple of years ago and broke up some of them, and so we're needing to replace it. We are looking at replacing it with a identical footprint. We're not going to enlarge or change the size of it. Use that footprint to put in a solid surface, textured and tinted to look like old concrete. In the backyard, we have a storage building that we need to enlarge because we have no storage. We want to add 12 feet onto it. It will still be metal roof, wood siding, painted yellow. We're adding 2 windows to it that match the windows on both our house and our guest cottage that we have in. One window we've salvaged from the house, and we've purchased another one that's the 2/2 sash, so it will look like it belongs with the other 2 buildings that are on the property.
In the application, for the sidewalk, it's a diagram after page 2, and then the diagram for the storage building is right after that.
On the storage building, this is the current one. Originally, we were going to put a porch on the south side of it. We've had to drop that because of the cost at this point in time. But I think y'all have the drawing that shows it not having a porch. Okay.
Okay, yes. Mr. Duke, do you mind going ahead and you can go ahead and sit down, and we'll let Mr. Duke give us his staff report.
stated, you have two requests for, actually 3 items in the application. The third one, which was to replace the rain gutters, we determined from a staff perspective that that is really considered maintenance, that they are going back with gutters that are exemplary of what's acceptable. They're only enlarging the capacity, and it's not something that you could tell from the street or even close visual inspection that that's a change of any substance. So we just elected to remove that. It's certainly in their application, and it's noted there in the staff report. The other 2 items, as Ms. Gaston stated, is the replacement of the 10-foot sidewalk that I believe Ms. Gaston may have stated, and I certainly agree with her. She stated to me that it's probably either a original feature or a very early addition to that property, given that there's also a similar sidewalk on other properties close by. Your guidelines basically say that historic driveways and sidewalks should be retained, but if you elect to allow for the removal of that sidewalk and replacement, you certainly need to, in my opinion, make sure that the replacement is somewhat simpler than what was there, so that it looks like it's a new feature. It doesn't look like that it is historic. And certainly the ones there is hard to maintain. It's going to be difficult to replace without specially having those cast each one specially. So that may be a consideration. The other item is the renovation or the addition to the existing accessory structure, to basically add a 10-foot by 12-foot extension on that. As far as your guidelines are concerned, we reviewed that as if it were an outbuilding, and your guidelines don't provide much in the way of details for additions or for modifications, but what's proposed by the applicant, in my opinion, is basically an addition that keeps the basic character of that structure. It doesn't change it significantly, and adds to its functionality, extending its life quite a bit. So I think that's a very appropriate renovation of that structure. The only thing I would note is that you have a picture of the building, shows the roof, and a lot of your guidelines really are talking about appearances. So going back with wood siding, where the wall is being raised a little bit on the existing structure, and you're adding similar siding on the extension or the addition. You have a kind of a unique roof, or something we would expect out of that type of structure for this time period. It's proposed to go back with a metal roof, and y'all didn't provide any details on that. Can you kind of speak to that? Okay. You might need to make sure we get you on tape, unfortunately.
It will be gray. I'm trying to think what Mr. Fisher said. A V-groove metal roof? Does that make sense?
Not without seeing it.
Okay. This one is more of a corrugated tin roof that has rusted and is actually leaking. To go back with the steel roof, but it's going to be gray. It's not going to be a weird color. I don't have any photos or details on it.
I was suggesting is that something of this nature is probably not going to last, and certainly you don't want to cause a maintenance issue. But if you can find if the applicant can find a metal roof that looks as close to this as possible, I think that would be more appropriate. Certainly metal roofs are available. They come in many different styles, but something that has a closer seam instead of a very wide seam would be more appropriate for this structure. Other than that, I don't have any other concerns. Be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, Commissioners, are there any questions concerning either one of these requests for Mr. Duke at this time?
Now, is the design on the sidewalk, that's going to be a stamped, and it's going to be, is it going to look like this picture?
We've gone out to Concreations and look at their samples that they have out there. It's a textured, but it's not, it's an overall textured surface, not individual blocks.
Oh, okay.
An overall surface. And then they put the tinting agent on it that will make it look a more weathered gray, not brand-new concrete.
Okay.
Anything else?
You can stay up here. Are there any other questions?
It will have the seam that they usually put in concrete when it's, what's that called? Expansion joints. It will have that in it because of how long it's got to be. It will have that, but it won't have individual.
Okay, what about with the addition, with the outbuilding? Are there any questions for Ms. Gaston about that at this time?
I assume that the metal roof that you're looking at has the wide panels, wide panel look, or?
Mr. Fisher is going to be doing the work for us, and I contact the company that will do the roofing. I have not contacted them yet, so I'm not sure.
Would you be agreeable to selecting a metal roof that has the shorter
As close
spans?
as I can get to it. Mm-hmm.
To the existing.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, I know you're all reviewing. Are there any questions for Ms. Gaston? Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any motions to be made for this request?
I make a motion that we issue a certificate of appropriateness with the caveat that the tin roof be as near to the existing as possible.
Okay. Okay, a motion has been made. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, and so that has been approved with the addition of the requirements for the roof. Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, can I have those old pieces? You need some, Grace? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, our next item of business is a certificate of appropriateness for an alteration of a patio enclosure at 161 West Main Street. Jules Moffett, petitioner. Have you already signed in, Mr. Moffett? Have you signed in?
Yes, I
Okay.
have.
Thank you for coming today. And if you'd just like to go over your request, and then it would give us the opportunity to ask any questions.
Okay, probably nobody knows me behind the panel. This is my wife, Patsy, at Patsy's Pens and Needles. We have the ugliest building in town. I think all of you know about it. Well, we started repairing it. Mr. Joel asked me to stop, and that's where it stopped about 3 years ago. And I have a potential renter next door, and I'm trying to do this whole thing at one time. And we have a plan to clean up that back end if I'd like to present it to you. I think all of you can cross the bridge. See that fence sticking out there?
go into the podium so that we can get you on mic? Yes,
I'm
sir.
a little hard of hearing, so I was trying to hear you
Oh,
guys.
I'm sorry.
But
I'll speak
anyway,
louder as well.
With it fixed like it is, the girls use it as a porch, and it's really a beautiful sight to sit out there and look down the creek. And we decided to leave it open. So I had a talk with Joel, and he agrees with me. A porch back there would enhance the whole district, and that's why we're here, to see if we can get this approved. And this is an architect, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them for you.
Okay, Mr. Moffitt, we'll let Mr. Duke come up right now and give us a staff report, and then we'll ask you and possibly your architect to come back up for any questions or clarification. Oh, designer, okay. Got it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Duke.
Sure. I'll just pick up where Mr. Moffitt discussed. We had issued a building permit for them to deal with a wall that was collapsing at the back of the building. Basically, the roof line in the pictures. Let me see if I can find a good picture here. Latter part of 2007, first 2008, they came and requested, and we were certainly glad to see it happen because it was it looked like a hazard. There was a wall that needed to be removed, and at some point in that process, we had questions about what they were doing as far as replacement, and asked them to stop till that could be clarified. And I think we might have had some misunderstanding there about how long that needed to take place, but I think Mr. Moffitt and I have gotten clear on that at this point. But in the interim, your guidelines got adopted. The historic district was approved by the city council, so any changes they want to make at this point, of course, need to come before you. So that's how we're here. The request is to remove these metal studs that are shown in the photo, and leave the corner supports. You see the different colored posts here on the corners. Those are metal, and what was presented in the application is that these would be encased in wood on all four sides, basically boxed in, and then there would be railing with balusters put in between each rails to create kind of a covered deck, covered patio type space, instead of going back with an enclosed wall. What's been presented to you today, that's the first time that's been reviewed by staff is this afternoon, so that's a little different than what was presented earlier, and includes a deck that goes all the way in front of the adjacent building as well. So we really haven't had a chance to review that. I'll start with that caveat. So the deck that's presented in that goes in front of 161 and 163. But the basic layout of the porch is what was envisioned by Mr. Moffitt and presented in the application. The design that's presented to you today does address a couple of the items that we talked about in the staff report. One is access. There was nothing presented in the original application dealing with stairs or access to the porch, and there was nothing presented that dealing with the covering the crawl space below the finished floor. One other item I will point out about what is presented to you there is that Mr. Moffitt or all the owners of the properties behind City Hall here signed an easement when the rear parking lot project was underway, and that easement basically allowed the city to have access or public access all the way up to the face of their buildings. So the design that's presented to you today would be an encroachment on that easement. So that would have to be worked out at some point. It certainly can be discussed today and talked about, but would appreciate that you might want to delay any consideration of that portion of this request until that can be worked out with the city attorney and the mayor and the council. I'll be glad to clarify any of those comments.
Okay, I have not had a chance to look at this, but so what you're saying is even if you remove the walkway from this request, even the addition is not exactly like it was petitioned and presented to us. There changes have been made to that as well. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'm not speaking to the quality of those changes. I'm just telling you that that's different than what was presented and reviewed.
It's not what we have been researching and studying in preparation for our meeting today.
Basically, if you look at the drawings presented, you have a kind of an angled wall on the we'll call it the front, but it's really the rear of the building, but the front of the porch. The easement that we're talking about goes flat to this face. Okay, so anything past that 90-degree angle on the front and side of the rear porch would be in the easement, and that is different than what was presented.
Okay.
I have a question about the easement. You're saying the easement goes all the way to the face of the building.
Right.
So the air conditioning units are an encroachment.
Right, and they're accounted for in the easement. Anything that was in place at the time the easement was signed, including steps or air conditioning units or gas meters, anything like that that went with each of the buildings was allowed. And make sure I'm really clear on this. We certainly want to improve access to Mr. Moffitt's building, and he does have a real access issue with the properties to the rear of 163, which is the adjacent building. And this would be one possible solution for that.
Yeah.
We just need to discuss that. You know, one of the reasons for the easement is also the city's ability to do maintenance back there, and we need to make sure that our ability to complete maintenance on the creek walk is maintained. So we would just have to look at that. I think there's a possibility for some accommodation, but as I was explaining to Mr. Moffitt before the meeting, having his ramp right up against the city's ramp is really not practical. You know, we can't ordinarily work on just one side, and the easement was obtained for that purpose. But I think we can find some accommodation.
Joel, was that porch, it was there when we did the easements and everything? I mean, that porch was already...
The porch wasn't there because it was really just it was a block wall. I don't have a good picture, unfortunately, of the back of that building as it existed before, but it was a cinder block.
But it was still out that far.
Right. This roof line hasn't changed. So what was there previously was right here under this roof.
Right. Okay.
They've just come back and supported the roof with post rather than the block wall that was
But the
there.
block wall was the same.
Same footprint.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
How does that footprint compare to the footprint on page 2 of the drawings?
Sorry, Mr. Patrick, you have me in
They're big. Yeah, the old footprint. Did it come out that far?
just to this point, right?
Okay, so this is all new from,
Including this triangular piece here. But again, I don't want to get too far afield from what they requested. Just wanted you to be aware of that. As far as the converting this to a porch rather than an enclosed space is certainly, I think, an improvement over what's there. And given also the general simple character of the rear of this building and some of the ones adjacent to it, and the fact that it does look out over the creek walk, this is probably a good use for this space. It does need to be cleaned up. What's proposed in the original application is a good way to do that. I think if this is what they're proposing now, this needs to be looked at a little further before.
Well, I'm honestly confused because
Okay.
we're bringing up this, but then again, we've been presented this. So I would like us to table this until our application and our design are cohesive, until they match. Is there any discussion on that, commissioners?
The what's being proposed on the plans versus what we see in the application, the difference is just the width of it, right? We're talking about right behind Patsy's Pins and Needles versus behind Pins and Needles and the old Taekwondo storefront, correct? That's the difference.
I don't know. I mean, it looks to me like there are materials that are different on the blueprints here versus the pictures that we have submitted with the application.
Well, the problem is it's on the easement. It goes out on the city easements.
But is that for a different commission? For us, I mean, we're not involved with easements, are we?
No, we would not be involved with that. What I would like to see is us table this until there's some clarification from the planning department and some clarification as to exactly what are we approving on the application, the materials, the area, the approval, those sorts of things.
Madam Chair, if I could, I would, from a staff perspective, I think it would be helpful for both my office and for the applicant if there could be some basic discussion about the design. If you have outstanding questions that you want to see addressed, certainly that can be dealt with, but it would also be helpful right now, since we have everybody present, to kind of have some discussion about whether the design is appropriate, whether they're headed down the right road, so to speak. But thank you.
Yes, sir. Please come up. Yes, sir. Thank you. If you will sign in, please, with Ms. Morgan first.
Madam Chairman, may I ask a question? Just
The original plan called for the porch to stop where it is. And the easiest way to eliminate that eyesore would be cover it up.
Yes, sir.
is this porch going to be all wood?
I would think so, yeah, because to have access to those transformers and stuff, you just make a plate, pick it up. But people throw trash out there, and it's really a
Right.
eyesore.
What type of wood would it be?
Anything that's suitable, I don't know.
Okay.
Mr. Moffitt, I appreciate. I think it's going to be great to. I said it's going to be great to improve that back there, but I don't. But the problem is the easement right now. We can't violate.
Joel said that that's the city's property, but
Right.
I think in lieu of, it's dead property, there's nothing can be done back there except for people to make a mess, and we just cover it up. I'm not taking the property. They took it from me.
I don't think we have the authority to do that.
Well, I know, but if you approve the deck, we'll try to get authority from the city.
I have a question. Does
I think
this,
it'd look a lot better with something covered.
Brooks business on the corner, Carol Brooks, is there any access down there now? So it's not blocking access to her?
It's not bothering anybody, it's just covering up all that ice. So
Yeah, well, it's,
Well, there's really, Commissioners, not a whole lot of sense for us to even discuss the easement because we have no say-so over that at this time anyway. So I would like us to go ahead and speak with your designer and see if we can find out more information about the porch, the addition. That's really what we're here for. You'll have to deal with the Planning Commission and talk to Mr. Duke about the easement, and then depending on what that decision is, then that will come back to us, and we can discuss it at that point. So if you would like to tell us a little bit more about the porch, that's what we're here for today.
Okay. I walked into this blind. I never knew any easements or anything was done. He said design something that would look decent back there, and I tried to do that. But I have one question that's bothering me. At 163, you got 3 exit doors that would possibly be emergency doors coming out of that building in the back. And fire code said for fire break out in the front, you got to have a way out the back. How do we solve that problem? Well, that planning commission.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right, then. I kind of, after listening to you, I kind of figured we probably have to go before the planning board,
Right.
get cleared there, and then come back to you for historic preservation.
Yes, sir.
I've done this in Washington, D.C., so I passed them. I know I can give.
That's
you.
right. So
All right.
we won't. We will do our best to not stand in your way with anything that will definitely improve the looks of the Creek Walk and the Moffitt's building for sure.
The decking, all decking can be put on hinges where you can just lift it up out of the way for service to the wall or anything. So by it being on top won't be a problem because we can put hinges under there, just lift it up, anchor it in place, repair what you got to do, and let it back down. And it's standard decking that's used throughout the industry everywhere. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we table this entire project and request that a couple things be done. Number one, that a clearer application, that the application and the design are the same, so we know exactly about which we are voting. And that the resolution with the easement and all that is not under our purview is handled and presented to us, and then we're all clear with that, and we will be looking. So that's my motion.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion at this time?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I just wanted to add the comment that I think your plans, this is just my personal opinion, it appears that your plans to have a wooden deck in the same footprint as that extension was when all this easement took place, I think you're on the right track. We're just not clear enough with enough information about exactly what it is to make the decision today.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the request has been tabled. Like Mr. Duke said, if you all want to get together with the planning department, of course, and discuss the easement, we have nothing to do with that. And then when all of that is taken care of, bring it back up, and we will certainly love to see all of this again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our last request for today is a certificate of appropriateness for a sign and alterations at 166 West Main Street, Walthall Enterprises. Did you sign in already? Okay, thank you.
And I'm George Walthall III. This is on the front sign. As you'll see in the packet, it is I'm speaking on behalf of them because they're not here. It's to change the front sign to the Fox Den. And it says it's going to be a vinyl overlay over an existing sign. Showed that they're going to spend $1,800 to have it done, so it appears that it's going to be a nice sign. That's all I have.
Okay, go ahead and have a seat, and we'll let Mr. Duke give us a staff report.
Yes, you have a request to replace basically the copy or the message on the sign at 166 West Main Street, which is the old Marshall's building. That existing sign is 20 feet by 36 inches, and the request is to replace that with vinyl overlay, and I think we have a copy. Basically, we're talking about a new sign. The sign that's there now is a replacement or has been added. Is certainly not original to the building or considered historic. You can see there in our report, which duplicates page 29 of the guidelines for commercial buildings. Generally, the requirements have been met except for material, in my opinion. The location, the scale of the sign is using the existing sign as its base is really along the lines of actually what was shot as an example of being a good placement in your guidelines. So the only thing really you need to consider is the material, whether that is a substantial issue for this board to deny or to ask for a modification. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Joel, on this picture, do you have it on the last page? It looks like the sign is kind of sticking out. Is that just the artist's rendition of that?
That is basically somebody's attempt at a photoshopping of a
Okay.
feature. So
Okay.
it would actually
Just wanted to clarify that.
Flat against the building.
Okay.
No protruding. I'm certain that there is some plan for some window signage.
Window signage is up as of
Okay.
yesterday. I saw that.
And we generally don't regulate that. We don't even permit that.
Mm-hmm.
We allow it, but it doesn't require a building permit.
Okay.
So those can be changed so often and they're easily removed. Generally, your guidelines are looking at structural type signs and their placement on the exterior of the building.
Okay.
So that will be flat.
Yes,
Is it going to
will
be
flat.
lighted?
And I'm not aware of any plans for it to be lit, but that, as I noted in the report, is not something that was provided as far as a detail. If you're concerned about that, you can and if you see fit to approve it, you just make that a caveat in your approval that it won't be lit unless you get a chance to look at it. So.
Is this an overlay on the existing one, or is
Yeah,
this a new one?
It's just going to be an overlay over
Okay.
the existing frame. Apparently, they're just going to come and attach it. It's my impression that might not be permanent, but I can't speak to that, and the applicant, the owner's here, but the applicant is not present. So it's going to be, you're not going to, from the street, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. It's just going to sit there in the existing frame.
It's not a dimensional thing, though. It's flat
Flat, yes, ma'am.
as an overlay. That's
Right.
okay.
If that's incorrect, we will, if that is not how they perceive it, that's a way we will correct them to, that the sign will have to be that. It shouldn't have any dimension to it.
So this is basically the same sign that was there before, just with different lettering.
Right. They're basically going to attach it onto the existing sign.
What's the existing sign made out of?
That's,
Oh, that's right.
I believe it's metal.
Okay.
It's Marshalls, yes. Excuse me.
Mr. Walthall, do you know if they intend to light it? Okay. Okay. All right.
Ms. Kirkpatrick, I would say that it has not been presented to us to be lit. I have not had an opportunity to speak to the applicant directly, but I would say that it's been made clear to them they would have to get that type of approval. So we will make it clear to them when they get their permit that they can't light it without coming back to it.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Duke? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we know if this is temporary? You said possibly. It'd be nice if that was temporary.
I can't speak to that. I would have to assume that it would be permanent, but if that's an issue, we can certainly find that out. But as indicated, this might be some discussions I've had with folks on my staff that have been talking with them, that this might be just a quick way to get the sign and get open. But we can find out whether that's the case or not.
And this is the color like we've got here?
Yes, the colors are accurate.
Okay, I move we grant certificate of appropriateness for the sign at 148 East Main Street with the reservation that if any lighting is to be used, that they will come back before the board, the commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye, and it has been approved. Thank you for coming and presenting that. Okay, Mr. Duke, is there anything else that we need to discuss that is not on our formal agenda today?
Yes, ma'am. If I could ask that there be sometime either this month or after the first of the year a work session to discuss what's been brought up several times before about minor applications or minor changes.
Can we go ahead and pick out some dates in January?
Sure.
And then let's go ahead and pencil something in, because we have been trying to do this for quite some time. And if we don't go ahead and choose some dates, it's just going to get lost in the future.
I agree. The first thing I would suggest is that you make it a extension of one of your meetings and just adjourn to a work session. Now, you really can't adjourn. If it's a public meeting, wherever you are, because of the Open Meetings Act, if you have a quorum, that's essentially an open meeting. It has to be a public meeting. So anybody that wanted to attend could do so, but you could adjourn to, say, a conference room to do that. So you certainly could have it following one of your meetings, or if the December meeting is the 27th. January is going to be the 24th. If you have a quorum, it's basically an official meeting. If you don't have a quorum, it's not an official meeting. So, but regardless, we'll have to advertise the time and the date and make the public aware, and certainly they're welcome to attend if they see fit.
Okay. Commissioners, is that Does that suit you all?
January meeting.
January 24th, an hour or so after that meeting, and Joel will provide Fox's Pizza Den
Where we have snacks.
for us, right?
And basically, you're saying it's,
What is our budget anyway? Do we have a budget?
actually, it's funny you should ask that. You do have a budget, but it's really not appropriate to use it for that. But if you wish to attend some type of training, there's a budget for that, and there's some budget for travel in that regard. So,
Madam President,
Yes, sir.
may I bring up some new business now?
Okay, are we settled on the 24th then? Okay, yes, sir, please.
I was just riding by that garage apartment again today, and have y'all been looking at
I'm not sure which one you're talking
the
about.
one behind on Main Street?
The Stavers, was that her name?
Who lived in that house on the corner?
Well, it was the Cooper House.
The Cooper House behind.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, I'm afraid that thing's gonna fall in.
Yes, we're addressing that from a building code perspective, and I'll go ahead and tell you that there are two properties. That's one, and then there's another that the city will actually have to come and appear before you asking for a certificate of appropriateness for demolition. That may sound kind of convoluted, but the way that your guidelines are set up and the way the state law is set up, demolitions in a historic district have to be approved by this board. So we're kind of of two minds about how to do it. We may have to appear before you first to basically ask permission to do that, but I think we're going to have to go to the city council first and get the authority to even consider demolition, and then come back before you. The positive part about that is that the owner will be put on notice in several different ways to try to deal with it. The structure you're talking about, I don't necessarily want to be on record saying it's not salvageable because I don't know yet. But
I wish it was, because we don't have too many of those left.
we don't, but it is gotten in a pretty deteriorated
Right.
state. The other property is one we've discussed here before, and that is Judge Booth's office on the corner of 4th Street and Chestnut. And I'm still hopeful that he will take action to repair that house. The damage is basically superficial. It's not a structural problem, but it's becoming one. So, and it's certainly an eyesore that is becoming an issue for the community. So, both of those we'll try to address after the first of the year. But I agree with you, Mr. Price. That is, yes, it is dangerous.
Okay, anything else? We have a work session on schedule.
Yay, thank you.
That's great. And are we meeting in December? Did we discuss that last month? I can't remember. No?
If you're looking to cancel that meeting, we'll need to know that now so that we can make folks aware that are making application.
That would probably be a good idea, if we just go ahead and cancel the December meeting and schedule that, reschedule any
It's fine.
applications for January.
certainly-
Do we have any at this time?
No,
No?
your deadline is actually probably the second week in December. So
Okay.
it's hard to tell at this point. But, certainly we'll be glad to tell everybody that's the case. If it's something that's really urgent,
I think that would be a good idea to go ahead and cancel that, and then if something comes up, Mr. Duke, you could make me aware and we can possibly deal with that.
the only thing I would note is that you have an item that you have tabled, so that it's basically on the table. It's not held to the next meeting, but the applicant might be expecting
Okay.
that it come up sooner than the 24th of January. But
Is Mr. Rouse is the only thing we've got tabled now?
that
Other than
and
the
Mr.
Moffats.
Moffat.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Mr. Rouse is basically informally and let us know that he's not pursuing that project at this time. So that will probably come back at a later date, but not right now.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we cancel our meeting scheduled for December the 27th.
Motion has been made. Is there a second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then we will cancel that, and if something comes up, you'll let us know. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor say aye. We're adjourned. Gray says, put your seats down. Merry Christmas.